With a dwindling amount of time left before the launch of Black Ops 4, we're fast approaching the time in which everything will be about that game for the foreseeable future. So while we still have a bit of time to sit down and talk about everything else in the Call of Duty world and universe, I figured let's finish off that in 2018 series that we've done here across the past couple of months here up on the channel. Over that time, we've taken a look at some of the history of the Call of Duty franchise and taken a look at each of the past releases and what they are like within 2018. Up to this point, we've done every one of the modern Call of Duty titles except for Black Ops 3, and there is a reason for that, but that's another story for another day. We've done every title up until the final two outside of this year's content, Infinite Warfare and Modern Warfare Remastered. So with a few Sundays left before Black Ops 4 launches, let's finish off this series that we started ages ago and check out what Infinite Warfare is like in 2018. Now, from the get-go, Infinite Warfare had an uphill battle to climb, with an introduction to the Call of Duty community and gaming industry as a whole as not only the third most disliked video in terms of trailers or gaming in that section of YouTube, but the third most disliked video in the history of YouTube, sitting as of today at over 3.7 million dislikes. Aside from potentially the mainstream meme appeal to dislike the video, a huge portion of that initial backlash came from either a burnout of vertical movement games after having Black Ops 3 as well as Advanced Warfare the 2 years before that, and the seemingly identical nature to Black Ops 3. Had Infinite Warfare released independently and aside from the Call of Duty name, either later, before, or even at the same time as Black Ops 3, I'm not sure that we'd be in the same position in today's time looking back at Infinite Warfare's reception. Before a game branded as Call of Duty, the immediate reception was, well, this isn't Call of Duty. Now fast forward a few months to the launch of the game, we saw a seemingly incomplete build and expansion of the beta that we saw, more so kind of a demo of the final product at that point, but the game had its flaws, as do all. One big thing that a lot of players were definitely disappointed at in the time was that of no leaderboards at launch. So kind of again lending a hand to that incomplete nature of the build, and I'll tell you even first and foremost, it wasn't my favorite title, and the reasons why, I didn't play as much of it that year as I did because it was seemingly too much of the same game a year after Black Ops 3 with identical mechanics. And again, that incomplete nature, of course, didn't help a large player population as well. But that said, let's take a look at what the game itself introduced, because believe it or not, there's some cool things that came out of Infinite Warfare that are really some unsung details and air quote heroes of the game. While not introducing the system as a whole, Infinite Warfare took the specialist system that was introduced in Black Ops 3 and expanded on it ever so slightly, offering combat rigs of Warfighter, Merc, Synaptic, FTL, Striker, and Phantom. Each had a selection of 3 payloads and 3 traits that you could choose from, offering a bit more choice and gameplay tactics than that of what we saw with Specialists from Black Ops 3. Additionally, we also saw a sort of selectable mercenary faction that you could play alongside with in-game called Mission Teams. These would allow for unique challenges and unlocks as you progress through the mission team ranks. While many of these may not have been the greatest rewards and some variants or so of weapons that you didn't really care all that much for, it was another additional ranking system that would reward you for simply trying to play a different way than you may normally, which is always good. Try and involve players a little bit more and get them out of their comfort zone per se. The weaponry systems were a bit different as well within Infinite Warfare, with each variant having specific skill sets and added bonus perks, if you will, to the weapon. Take Advanced Warfare's variant system and put a slight twist on it, and that's what you had with Infinite Warfare. One new and strange portion of this weapon system, though, allowed for nukes, or in Infinite Warfare's case, deatomizer bombs, to be called in only by using weapon variants that had the nuclear ability equipped, which was only a small percentage of overall weapon variants. This also no longer allowed you to simply get a 25 kill streak or gun streak, but instead required you to get all 25 kills with that one specific weapon. Again, a bit of a twist of the former systems. Other weaponry spins saw the introduction of DLC weapons granted immediately to season pass holders in variants available in supply drops or out of the armory crafting. A nice way to do this, and it also guaranteed players the new weapons if you had that season pass. But if you didn't have the season pass, that's totally okay as well, because you could earn those weapons via in-game challenges that didn't take all that long to complete. Just a little bit of extra work in-game to get something completely organically and not have to test your luck to get a variant out of supply drops via RNG. Additionally, there were also classic weapons that were introduced within Infinite Warfare that took a sort of futuristic spin, but also gave us the ability to have weapons that were of classic nature. Those being the OSA, which was the ARX from previous titles, the MACTAV 45 was the UMP 45, the TF 141 was the Intervention, the S-Ravage was the SPAS 12, the M1, well, that was the M1, and the Hornet was the G18. So a handful of different weapons here that were available, and also if you wanted to get the Black Sky overall weapon camo completion, that's something you actually had to go through the ranks and also get all these done as well. So you may have had your fair share with this, or maybe not of these weapons, but regardless, they were there. Another little change to the system that we've known for quite some time were the score streak systems. These now offered variants, which were differentiated by score and ability, but each score streak was able to have a variant crafted or of different rarity or different salvage amounts that would allow for different abilities on that specific score streak. Each, of course, were optional. You didn't have to take a variant here for this, but they all balanced each other's abilities out rather well. So the one that is kind of comparable here to me is that a UAV would end up lasting longer, but would have less health, so you could shoot it down a lot quicker. So in that sense, they kind of balanced out where one thing would definitely be something you really want, but the downside would be something you didn't really want to sacrifice. So they evened themselves out pretty well, and since then, we haven't really had the customizable score streaks as such, but we did see that before in Advanced Warfare, but since then, not really all that much. We saw that there were some different adjustments to, say, World War II streaks, where requisitions and blitzkrieg alter, say, the time that you have in each item, but other than that, really not all that much has come out of score streak variation. Another thing that was also kind of added on was the contract system, because we had contracts before. We saw those in Black Ops 3. We have a ton of contracts in World War II now, and so this was kind of a bridging the gap thing where we had more of these more often, and we also had the introduction of mission team contracts, which granted certain challenges with that mission team and allowed for specific unique rewards as well. One of the biggest things that I think that Infinite Warfare contributed to not only just that game, but also the way that I think Call of Duty should be even able to go in the future, and we actually will see it in Black Ops 4, but as the Black Ops 4 beta, it wasn't as efficient as Infinite Warfare's system, that being loading the maps for each game in the pre-game lobby. This is something that in Infinite Warfare you'd end up voting on a map, and then you'd have about a 20-second time frame. You'd have another bit of intermission. That would actually load up the map in the background, and then whenever you jumped into the game, it would only be a 3 to 5 second loading screen before you could choose your class and then jump into the countdown timer. This would allow for seamless transition from lobby to the game, and that's something that I absolutely loved, and we've only again seen one time since, and that being in the Black Ops 4 beta, but it still needed to work on. So hopefully in Black Ops 4 that is ironed out a little bit further, but I still think this might have been one of the best things Infinite Warfare had to offer the entire Call of Duty franchise. Game Battles integration was also a new system that was introduced, in which it may be arbitrary to many of us like myself who didn't really dabble in competitive, but the ability to see matches scheduled and join up from that sort of hub was a fantastic piece of tech added into the game. And the final thing that we'll really recap here is the supply drop content, because there was tons of filler content. It wasn't as bad as Black Ops 3 per se, but there are things that were, of course, at least a little bit worth value, those being maybe, say, camos. And if I'm honest, I think Infinite Warfare had some of the best camos as of recent years, but there were tons of that and a ton of filler content. But the bright side was the overall top-down experience for supply drops obviously weren't as bad. You could end up getting new DLC weapons as a season pass holder for free. You could do it for free also with in-game challenges, and also things like bundles weren't as bad as what you'd see in, say, COD World War II or Black Ops 3. You could actually end up getting, I'll use today's for example, the 5-pack bundle and an SMG hack that could be bought not only with COD points, but also keys that you'd end up, say, purchasing in-game supply drops as well. So if you're not fond of actually putting real-life money into that game for cosmetic items, you can end up doing it with in-game currency that you just organically mine by playing the game. But as for where we're at today, well, the big thing that we always take a look at in every one of these videos is the player count. Unfortunately, there's not any way to check the player count of Infinite Warfare in 2018 today. We could of course check Steam numbers, but PC in Call of Duty hasn't had the strongest of ties in recent years. Maybe Black Ops 4 can revitalize that PC scene a little bit, but outside of Steam numbers, which are already dwindlingly low, we have no way to check on console, whether that be on Xbox One or PC. There is no counter. The last time we saw that was in Ghost, so we don't have anything to say how many unique logins have really been on within the last 24 hours. That said though, lobbies didn't seem really all that hard to find, though admittedly, it did take a little bit longer of a wait than your standard of recent years and in your most populated game modes like TDM, but it still wasn't all that hard to find, just maybe say 10 to 20 seconds more in terms of finding a lobby. And that may very well just depend on myself. You guys may have an easier time or tougher time depending on a huge number of variables that could go into the networking issue. That said though, connect detection also did seem just fine. I played with an open as well as strict nat type, kind of to mess around with inadvertently. I started out with an open, and then as the day progressed, I ended up on a stricter nat type, but there really wasn't all that much of a difference. Everything still felt fluid, everything still felt all right. Hit detection is also the big thing that everybody always wonders about, because if you don't have hit detection, you're not getting kills off. But the nice part about this is the game is, of course, recent enough that it's still on a dedicated server system, or so we're told, but hit detection was still relatively good. There were very few times where I was questioning whether or not my shots actually hit or if I was off my aim, but it was something that was still very manageable and made the game, of course, a lot more fluid in that sense. Additionally, the support is still there for the game. If you guys haven't played in, say, a year or so since the game has been the main title, you still have your daily logins, you still have your daily and other contract challenges, and you periodically will get things like a double XP weekend or double key weekend and other cool things like that. Additionally, also things as of recently as Days of Summer offered up some new deals, and I think even that offered up a new DLC map for free, or not new DLC, but a DLC map from earlier in the content year of the primary life of Infinite Warfare. It offered that as playable for free during Days of Summer, if I'm not mistaken. So while the game might not be everybody's favorite cup of tea, it's not entirely forgotten. It is still something that does have some support periodically, even though it's kind of gone back to the wayside and it's not the main primary title anymore, and it's going to be now even secondary to World War II being that title behind Black Ops 4. So while we draw closer to the next Infinity Ward title, we're going to get less and less support, obviously. But for the time being, it still has had its periodic updates. It still feels great to play if you are a fan of that movement, and that's one thing that I will say again. If Infinite Warfare didn't launch when it did, if it wasn't something so futuristic and associated with a Call of Duty title, I think that honestly it could have done a lot better. But that said, 2018 really doesn't change as much as you may think, and it's still something that still has a decent amount of player count for the given circumstances. That said, I think we're gonna wrap it up here at taking a look at Infinite Warfare in 2018. So 1 year later, the game is still going. Whether or not you think it's going strong, that really comes down to, I guess, personal ideology. It, of course, maybe looked over more so than other Call of Duties as of recently, but the game itself still has the support, it still has the fluid motion that I think they did very well with coming out of Black Ops 3's life cycle. But moving on into Infinite Warfare, it was an interesting look back to see where we came, how far it actually got, the new introductions that it offered the Call of Duty franchise, and alterations to already existing systems, and where we're at now, of course, in the timeline of the Call of Duty universe. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Did you guys like Infinite Warfare? Did you think it was sort of a game that got a little bit too much bad rap for what it actually deserved? Did you guys not like the game at all? Whatever it may be, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And also, would you guys be willing to go back and try Infinite Warfare out? I know that's something that, of course, we can talk about this all day, but would you be willing to go back and check it out? Love your thoughts on that as well. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. If you are also new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Call of Duty. Black Ops 4 and Blackout is right around the corner. We still got a little bit of stuff coming up with World War II, so we'll keep you up to date with all things that we can relating to Call of Duty. But if any of that interests you, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Call of Duty. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those links are down there in the description below if you guys want to get connected further. But all that said and out of the way, thank you guys all so much for watching. My name's been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.